Hey guys, it's Barbie with Two Friends in a Bible. I am coming to you today, September 13th, 2022. I am going to be giving you an update on everything that's going on in this crazy world of ours. And I know I just did an update yesterday, but honestly, there's a lot going on, and I feel like the Lord's telling me that we're going to be having a lot more going on, and so that I need to go ahead and get you guys updated. Yesterday's update had a lot to do with the rapture, and so I am going to go ahead and put this out today and let you guys know what's going on. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the Iranian nuke deal. And Arab experts are saying that Israel has managed to postpone the signing of this deal, making sure that Iran is not allowed to run away from responsibility of answering questions regarding 3 areas that were not declared by Iran where uranium was found and it shouldn't have been. So in other words, Arabs are saying that Israel was able to postpone the signing of this deal, and Iran is not really wanting to. They're wanting to take. There's 3 areas in Syria, I believe, that they found some traces of uranium, and it's from Iran, and they're investigating that, and Iran wants that taken out of the deal as well. They don't want them investigating that anymore. And then they also said that Israel was able to postpone it. And I don't think that's the case. No, I don't think the postponing of this deal is not because of Israel, but because of midterm elections in the United States. And we talked about this on the video yesterday. So I don't think that's it. I think it all has to do with the midterm elections. I really do. I don't think it has anything to do with Israel, because Israel at this point, well, we'll just keep going. But Israel has provided to the world and UN, and they've provided evidence that Iran has tripled its uranium enrichment, which will be enough to make have enough uranium to make 5 nuclear bombs. And at this point, I mean, the world's not going to be able to stop Iran from having enough uranium because they already have enough. So not even sure, other than them getting the money, I don't understand really what it's going to benefit, especially the United States and the European Union, because we're just going to be giving them billions of dollars. I think it's like 6 billion up front, like 90 billion a year, give or take a billion. So I don't even know at this point what would be the purpose, because Israel's proved they have enough for 5 bombs, and there's been other people proving it. So I don't really know what would be the purpose in the deal, and there were 3 areas that they found some uranium that Iran should have never had in that area. And like I said, I think it's up in the Syria area, but Iran's never going to explain why they had uranium in places they weren't supposed to have it. And if there's going to be a deal, Israel's going to have to act immediately. If there is an Iranian deal, Israel's going to react. They're going to go in there and attack Iran because they don't want them having the bombs. I don't think at this point they've made the bombs, but they have all the ingredients to go ahead and do it. And they needed a certain amount of uranium, and now Iran has it. And even if there's not a deal, Iran's still going to continue to race to make the bomb. They're going to keep on doing it. So either way, Israel's going to have to do something, because Iran intends to destroy Israel with these bombs. And if if Iran, who's Israel's biggest enemy, says they'll kill Israel, they're going to do it. And they don't want to just hurt Israel. They want to wipe them off, the map. They do not want them on the map at all. In fact, if you ever look at Arab maps, they don't even list Israel. They don't even recognize them. And Iran released Israel released two pieces of information. Iran's presence in Syria with the three areas, and then the Iranian action in Iran regarding the nuke program. So I think basically the rest of this month, today is September 13th, but I think the rest of this month, you're going to see a lot of things happening, a lot. And I feel like that's why God kind of told me today, no, you need to get on there and go ahead and do your updates because it's fixing to get even more busy. Yeah, I think that's going to happen. And so stay tuned. I think September and even into October is going to be quite big. All right, let's go to Ukraine real quick. There's been a lot of in the last few months, there was a lot of Russian offense. I mean, they were getting inside of Ukraine, and everyone thought they were going to win and whatnot, and they still might, but I think that Ukraine's pushed back a lot harder than Russia expected. And Russia had taken over a lot of areas with them wanting to prevent Ukraine from having access to the Black Sea. And so they were trying to close in Ukraine all the way around. So that's what they were working towards. But because the West has been arming Ukraine with large weapons, it's caused a major turn of events in the war. Over the last couple of days, Ukraine has used the U.S. made weapons and equipment, which caught the Russians very unprepared. And not to mention the Russians are very tired and they're deficient in their weapons and manpower. And so the Ukrainians have taken back thousands of square miles and they've liberated some of the villages and small towns that Russia had taken over. So Ukraine has definitely kicked back. And so now, because of this, the Russians have decided to punish the Ukrainians by attacking power plants all across Ukraine. And so right at this moment, Ukraine has about 20 to 30% less power right now. And this is Russia's way of doing things. If you fight against them, they're going to cut your energy, and that's what they've done. Just like with Europe, they're cutting energy. That's just what they do. They've got that power, because they hold a lot of it. And then I'm going to have to pronounce the city. I'm going to have to spell the city, but the nuke power plant in Zaporizhzhia, Zaporizhzhia, was actually shut down on Monday, which was yesterday, and that's in the Ukraine. And this is going to be super hard on all these cities that are involved that get their heat, their energy from this area, from this nuke power plant. It's going to be really tough because the winter's coming. I mean, we're in the middle of September. I'm in Georgia. We're 83 degrees today. It's beautiful and sunny. But places like that, they're already starting to get cold, and they have some pretty rough winters. So it's concerning. And in addition to that, to the Ukraine having a terrible winter, Europe's also going to be having a terrible winter in regards to this war because Russia's closed down Nord Stream 1. And so that's going to hurt Europe really bad. More actions, that's just, more actions by Russia to cripple the Western European economy. And right now, the prices are 10 times more than they were last year. And this is, causing companies in Europe to go bankrupt, families to go bankrupt and lose everything because they can't afford it, 10 times more. So if you were paying, $200 a month for your energy, you're now paying $2,000 a month. Yeah, who can afford that? I couldn't. And so Europe is paying right now for its addiction to alternative energy sources such as wind and solar, which cannot give enough power and even enough power. It barely gave enough while supplementing with Russia's energy, Russia's gas sources, which is now stopped. And I know number 45 warned them warned Europe, primarily Germany, at the UN conference a couple years ago that they need to stop relying on Russia for their energy. And then he also warned against these windmills and stuff. If you don't have wind and if you don't have sun, these alternatives can't work. So it's causing masses of recessions in all these different countries and economic falls. It's just getting worse, Okay, Russia on September 11th, which was Sunday, they actually flew inside the Alaskan and United States air defense zone. The Russian aircrafts remained in international airspace and did not enter the US or Canada, but they still got very, very close. Personally, I think it's a warning from Russia. I think they're warning us, they can get Alaska, they're not that far from Alaska. I know when you think of Russia, you're thinking, oh, they're all the way over there, but Alaska's all the way over here, and it's not that far. So if they're going to go after the United States first, I would think that's what they're going to go after is Alaska. And that's just my personal opinion that was a warning. And it's because, and I think it's because of all the help we've given the Ukraine. Because of all the help we've given Ukraine, it's caused Russia to get pushed back. Yeah. So, and they're losing tons of money and military and, so things that, Putin was not expecting to happen. And so, I don't know. All right, Sweden and Italy are going through government changes as well as many other countries that I've reported on in the past. Japan, Sri Lanka, the UK, all kinds of them. And this, of course, is causing major civil unrest. And like I reported on last week, 101 countries out of 198 countries in the world are in civil unrest right now. And it's getting worse. Okay, I'm going to spell this because I don't know if I can pronounce it, but there was a Shahed, SHAHED 136, which is an Iranian-made UAV found in the Ukrainian city near Kharkiv, Kharkiv, which shows that Iran has indeed supplied the Russians with UAVs and are already operating inside of Ukraine. I mean, I knew about the drones, but I didn't know about those. So either Iran's shooting inside of Ukraine or that's what they shipped over to Russia. And I'm pretty sure that's what they shipped over to Russia because they're buddies now. Okay, this is something that's new. There have been reports of major fighting on the Armenian-Azerbaijan border. And Azerbaijan is Azerbaijin border. The Armenians have reported that Azerbaijani army is attacking several of their cities and towns with drones and mortars. Now, this was as of a couple of days ago, okay? Azerbaijan, though, at this point has now declared war on Armenia. Apparently, what happened was Armenia deployed personnel and military equipment into Karabakh, Karabakh economic zone, which is supposed to be a neutral zone for both countries. Armenia has reached out to Russia and Putin for help. They are both in some kind of, it's not NATO, but it's another organization that Armenia and Russia are both in. So they reached out to Russia for help. A couple of years ago, there was a surprise uprising in Kazakhstan. And when that happened, Russia deployed troops and de-escalated that situation. And this happened in Armenia. And so the question is, will Russia do this again? Or are they going to step out and help them again? Well, Russia's in a little bit of a different situation right now because they're dealing with the Ukraine. They're apparently doing something with Alaska and messing with the United States too. Time will tell on what's going on with that. And they're also teaming up with Iran and Syria to go against Israel. So Russia's busy. It would be, but if they do, it's going to be huge. If they do team up, it'll be huge because Azerbaijan is backed by Turkey, Israel, and a lot of Western countries. Okay. Azerbaijan, no, I'm butchering that name, but it is an energy powerhouse. So this could get really, really interesting. They have a lot of natural gas and oil that they get from the Caspian Sea, and they have a very large military. Russia's not going to be able to fight Azerbaijan as easily as they did with the rioters in Kazakhstan. It's just not going to be as easy. But the timing of this is kind of interesting, though, because right now there's a NATO exercise going on. There's a NATO exercise going on right now in the Mediterranean Sea, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then you've got Ukraine taking back a lot of Russia, and that NATO exercise going on is involving many countries, including the U.S. and Canada, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But it's kind of suspicious to me that you got this big NATO exercise going on. You've got Ukraine pushing back with Russia, and now you've got this stuff going on in Armenia and in Azerbaijan. So I don't know why I feel that way. It just seems off. Something's not got, something just feels weird. And, and also the attack on Armenia, it didn't happen overnight. They had to be putting that together for several weeks before that just happened. It didn't happen overnight. So did they coordinate with Ukraine and the NATO so that Russia has more to deal with? I don't know. Maybe. Okay, so Russia does have Skander missile systems in Armenia. So do you think, is Armenia going to use these, or will Russia use them, or maybe even use their nukes against Azerbaijan to protect Armenia? And honestly, as of yesterday, it looked like the Azerbaijan is actually trying to invade Armenia and not just attack them. Normally, when you're just attacking, you're attacking like military, like what Israel does, military operations, places where they're storing missiles and artillery and all that. But in this situation, they're actually attacking civilian areas in Armenia. And so that doesn't typically happen unless there's an invasion planned. I think they're trying to invade Armenia. And this just came in just a couple of hours ago that Russia is indeed helping Armenia. And they are definitely going to help Armenia. And now there is actual footage showing Azerbaijan troops crossing into the Armenian border on foot. So, yeah, we're seeing an invasion happen. Definitely. Okay, so I've had a few people ask about the Queen of England and with her passing, what kind of prophecy does that, what kind of prophecy is that going to fulfill? Since we're doing the Revelation series, I don't think, and Amir talked about this today too, but I don't think that's going to fulfill any type of a prophecy 101. But when you've got Italy and Sweden in unrest and you've got Japan with a new government, you've got Sri Lanka with a new government, you've got UK now with a king and a new prime minister. You got Sweden and Italy getting new governments. Israel. Israel's going to be getting a new prime minister come November 1st. You have all these places changing out their government. So to me, and it's also what Amir said, was that this is a way for the Antichrist to come on the scene. He's going to have 10 kings following him. Okay. So I think we're going to be seeing more and more political changes. And then near future than what we've actually already seen just in these last couple of months. And honestly, this has a lot to do with our weak administration here in the U.S. U.S. was was the superpower. We still are, but we're hanging on by a little tiny thread. And you get a weak administration in there, all the children are gonna misbehave. There's no one calling the shots anymore. So with all this weak administration, it's causing Russia and China and Iran and everyone just to do whatever they want, because we're not gonna do nothing. And Russia, China, and India is already calling for the new world order, with America no longer calling the shots. So they're already calling for a new world order, which is end time prophecy. And they want, basically, it's where you're going to have a one world government, and the United States won't be calling the shots anymore. So we certainly will not be the superpower. And if that happens, neither will Russia, because at one point in time, USSR was the superpower. Okay, so we got the Feast of Trumpets coming, and they are coming. Hang on, I meant to pull this before I did it. Feast of Trumpets is an Israel holy day. Okay, and that is coming September 26th. Okay, and it's very important, these Israel holy days, because it totally ties into our end times. And I'm going to read you what the Feast of Trumpets is in the event that you don't know, but it is coming September 26th, and this has to do with Israel, okay? And it's their high holy days. And remember, Jesus was Jewish, so he celebrated all of these feasts. And the feast that happened in the spring, which is Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, he's already fulfilled those. Jesus already fulfilled those. But when he comes for the second coming, and during the second coming and all, he's going to fulfill the fall feast, which is the Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Feast of Booths or Tabernacles, and the Feast of and that's it. Those three are going to be in the fall. Okay, so Feast of Trumpets is also New Year, and it's also referred to as Yom HaTorah and Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah. Anyway, it is typically in September or October of every year, and it's based off of the lunar, solar, whatever the moon cycles are. Solar? Yeah, that's how they base theirs. And I'm going to read to you what this is. And these were instructions by God to the Israelites through Moses that they were to celebrate these feasts. Okay, and if you want to review it in the Bible, it's Leviticus 23 through 25. But the 10 days and it lasts 10 days, and it's the beginning of the civil new year. The 10 days of repentance with Rosh Hashanah on the first day and Yom Kippur on the last day makes up the high holy days. Jewish traditions say that God writes every person's words, deeds, and thoughts in the book of life, which he opens and examines on this day. If good deeds outnumber sinful ones for the year, that person's name will be inscribed in the book for another year on Yom Kippur. During Rosh Hashanah synagogue services, the shofar or the ram's horn is blown 100 times. Okay, so that's what that is. And so that's starting September the 26th. And it goes for 10 days. So you're going to have the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. And I'll tell you what Day of Atonement or Yom Kippur is. And you can find that in Leviticus 23, 26 through 32. And it's the day the high priest makes an atonement for sin. Yom Kippur, also known as Day of Atonement, is the most solemn holy day of the Jewish people. Yom means day, and Kippur means atonement or covering. Atonement means the reconciliation of God and humankind. The 10 days, which include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, are known as the days of repentance. Yom Kippur is the final day of judgment when God judges the people. The shofar, ram's horn, is blown at the end of the evening prayer service for the first time since Rosh Hashanah. In the Bible time, the high priest would sacrifice an animal to pay for his sins and the sins of the people. When the high priest was finished with the atonement sacrifice, a scapegoat was released into the wilderness to carry Israel's sins away. Well, Jews don't have a temple anymore. It was destroyed in AD 70, so they have nowhere to sacrifice. So they haven't sacrificed an animal in 70 years. So I'm not really sure how they're getting atoned for their sins if they can't sacrifice. And of course, as Christians, we know that Jesus is our one true sacrifice. He is the Lamb of God. So we don't have to sacrifice. And then the last thing is just the Feast of the Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles, is in Leviticus 23, 33 through 43. And that commemorates the 40-year wilderness journey. Okay, and it's called Sukkot, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. Is a week-long celebration of the fall harvest and a time to build booths, which are temporary shelters or branches, to remember how the Hebrew people lived under God's care during their 40 years in wilderness. The celebration is a reminder of God's faithfulness and protection. Jewish people continue to celebrate Sukkot by building and dwelling in temporary booths for 8 days. The 4 special plants used to cover the booths are citron, myrtle, palm, and willow. Okay, so those are the feasts that are coming up and what they're going to be celebrating. Okay, so they're going to be celebrating Feast of Trumpets or the New Year, or also known as Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Booths or Tabernacles, also known as Sukkot. Okay, so that's what's coming up. Well, here's what, in the last couple months, Israel was not a nation until 1948. And right now, the Temple Mount is in the Palestinian side, so they don't have a place to build their temple. Okay, that's where the Palestinians, Muslims, have their stuff. Okay, so they don't have a place to even build a temple at this point. Now, during the end times, they will be rebuilding that temple, even if it's just the tabernacle temple like Moses had built, or even King David. It was a smaller section that could be moved, whereas the one Solomon built was the big, huge, golden, crazy, just huge, and it was the one that was destroyed in AD 70. So, but either way, they're going to be building one coming back. Okay, so for the last couple months, tensions at the Temple Mount have increased dramatically. And I talked about on Monday about the Arabs saying the Jews plan to sacrifice animals at the Temple Mount on Rosh Hashanah, which is unfounded and untrue. But they're saying that that's what the Jews are going to do. They're going to go on the Temple Mount and sacrifice animals. And right now, the Temple Mount belongs to them, and that's not their belief. And so it would be like it would be really not good, if they did that, because to them, it would not be good because that's not their belief. Okay. Right now, both the Muslims and the Jews claim rights to that Temple Mount. Israel's 365 News, which is one of their main news reporters, paper, news outlets, whatever, but they're reporting that the leader of the radical movement is calling for aggression if the Jews attempt to blow the shofar, which is the horn, the big horn that they're going to blow 100 times at the end of, I believe it's Yom Kippur. Yeah. At the end of Yom Kippur, after that 10 days, they're going to blow it, and they blow it for 100 times. And it's that big long horn. It's the coolest sounding thing you've ever heard. If you have never heard it before, you might want to just like Google it or YouTube it or something just to hear what it sounds like, because it's pretty cool. So first they were saying they're going to sacrifice animals on the Temple Mount. And then, of course, the Jewish paper and the Jewish big dogs, generals, military people, whatever, said that, that's a bunch of hogwash. We're not going to do that. So now they're saying that if they attempt to blow the shofar at the Temple Mount on the Feast of Trumpets, that there's going to be a hostile attack. They're going to attack them. Okay, so, and massive aggression. So now they're saying they're going to plan aggression on Rosh Hashanah and the Feast of Trumpets. So, or Feast of Tabernacles. So a Feast of Trumpets, which is Rosh Hashanah, they're saying if they sacrifice animals on that day through the 10 days later on Yom Kippur and the Feast of Trumpets and Tabernacles, that they're going to have aggression. They're going to attack. So now it's whether if they sacrifice an animal or if they blow the shofar, whatever. And of course, the Arabs state the Temple Mount will never be in the hands of the Jews, which, God says different. And this name, I'm going to spell it because I know I'm going to beat it up, but Al-Khatib, Khatib, that's the name of the man that's inciting this violence. He's done this in the past. And anytime he has ever called for this type of violence, it's happened. People listen to him. And right now, him and his people do all their operations underground. He's a huge enemy of Israel. And he's a Palestinian, but he is a huge, huge enemy of Israel. And so anytime that he has said to do this, it's happened. So we can expect it to happen. Don't know what's going to come from it, but, right now you've got Hezbollah and Hamas and Islamic jihads and all them meeting about go ahead and attacking Israel, from all around. So if you got that, and then you've got this going on, And, one of the things we do need to always remember is that the Palestinians have been taught since childhood to hate Israel and the Israelis, and that Israel is their enemy. I mean, that's something they've been taught since birth. Don't make it right, but that's just all they know. So, and honestly, the Bible is very clear on who the nation of Israel belongs to and what those boundaries are. Okay. This is, honestly, this is leading up to Israel and Jerusalem and the Temple Mount's part in the upcoming tribulation, which is also known as Jacob's trouble. Actually, the entire world's being prepared for the tribulation and Jacob's trouble. And the closer we get to these Feast of Trumpets, which is Rosh Hashanah, September 26th, the closer we're going to be seeing all this evil intensify. And it's getting ugly. I mean, incredibly ugly. And there is no way that Israel can protect itself if they've got all the terrorist groups, the Ring of Fire, attacking, and then they got this dude, Palestinian dude, saying if they blow the shofar, or they sacrifice animals on the Temple Mount to attack. You got that, and then you've got Iran getting their nukes and hating them and wanting to attack them from the north. And there is no way that Israel can protect themselves from all of that. There's no way. But what we do know is God's already said he will protect his children. He will protect his chosen ones. And so that'll happen. I mean, we don't have to worry. Israel is not going to get blown off the map. It's just not going to happen. And they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. But it's still nasty. Okay. So here's a little bit more information about Israel and Iran. Israel has exposed Iran missile factories in Syria and Iran's plan to target Tel Aviv and Haifa, Haifa. My daughter and I are supposed to be going to Israel in May. We're supposed to be going to Israel, Egypt, and Cyprus. And Haifa, that's one of the areas we're going to spend a whole day in. So we'll see what's going to happen. And Tel Aviv as well. And Jerusalem, I believe. Yeah, Jerusalem, definitely. So We'll see what's going to happen. It's not looking good right now for us to go, but we're supposed to be going in May. So anyway, they discovered there's a new Iranian drone that's been discovered that is designed to specifically target Tel Aviv and Haifa. The Iran missile it's a drone. I forget what they call it, but it literally is just Iran made it just to target those two cities. Okay, so and then then they found the Iran missile factories all over Syria, all over it. And the ones that Israel's the most interested in, according to their Israel's defense minister, are located in northwest Syria, which is where Israel has been carrying out airstrikes in this area recently. So, but Iran is also building these missile factories in Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon, which would explain another reason why Israel attacked Yemen a couple of weeks ago when they were having those issues with Israel, in the Gaza Strip with the jihads. That was just maybe a month or so ago. They actually went over and attacked Yemen too and killed several people. But that was kind of a little bit quieter because we were all focused on what was going on in Gaza. But so that explains why they attacked that area. They were going after those missile factories. And Israel's quiet about things. They don't necessarily tell you what they're doing. They won't deny or admit anything. So in these missile factories, as most of us, a lot of us know already, they're used to store weapons to supply Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, all those different terrorist groups that are proxies for Iran. And the master plan for all these sites to be at Israel's doorstep, right, like it is right now, was masterminded by Soleimani, which, if you remember, number 45 took him out through a drone attack inside of Iraq, I believe, and it happened in January 2020. Yeah, so gives you another idea why that happened. Trump, 45 was taken up for Israel. Plus I think he might have had some intel possibly on them doing something to the United States as well. But the United States protected Israel at that point. So, but unfortunately, even though Soleimani passed away, the plan was already put into place. So it did not stop. They already had the plan. All they had to do was just keep doing what they were doing. So we're going to probably see Israel continue striking these sites and trying to get rid of them as best they can. They can't allow these enemies to be at their doorstep doing this. They just can't allow it. I mean, that would be like, we're here and we got Canada here. This is the U.S. We got Canada here and we got Mexico here. That would be like us just letting Mexico put all that stuff in areas that they could just start attacking Texas and California and, in different places. And, we can't allow that to happen. So it's understandable. And then today, Israel actually has announced that they're going to be ready to send natural gas to Europe by early 2023. So we were talking about just a couple minutes ago, Europe having all these problems because of Nord Stream 1 pipeline being taken down. And they're going to be in for a harsh winter. But Israel has that new area that we talked about Monday, Kerishrig, that they're working on. And it's supposed to be, or they will be working on it, and it's supposed to be ready by the very early, maybe January 2023, and then they can send some gas to Europe. And honestly, that's going to trigger Russia big time. And if we have not had that Gog-Magog war by then, I think that's going to trigger it to get started, because that is going to infuriate Putin. Part of what he holds against people is, okay, I just won't let you have any gas. I'll just hold your energy back. because he holds so much of it, and he can use that as a crutch. But if Israel is able to produce enough and can send it to Europe, and Europe's not in dire straits anymore, well, you can't use that anymore, can he? So yeah, it's gonna make him even that more angry. You got Ukraine pushing back on him. Yeah, he's gonna blow his top. And honestly, though, if that does happen and it is the Gog Magog war, we already know that Ezekiel 38 and 39 has told us that God will put a hook in their jaw and pull them back, and that's a way of looking at like fishing, you put a hook when you're fishing, you put a hook in the fish and you roll it in, pull it back, right? Well, that's just, back in the days in the Bible was being written, fishing was a big thing. So that's how it was, talked about. But what that means is he's going to pull any enemies against Israel back. Okay, so we'll go back. We're going to go back on the NATO part that I had mentioned a few minutes ago. NATO is having exercises this week in the Eastern Mediterranean, focusing on crisis responses. There were warships from 12 NATO countries in an area with a sizable Russian naval presence. This began actually September the 11th near Turkey's Oxus, AKSAS, naval base on the southeast coast of the Aegean Sea. Aegean Sea? This included 50 surface ships, 5 submarines, 5 patrol planes, and helicopters from the United States, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Poland, Romania, Spain, and Turkey. Not clear on exactly how many U.S. ships were involved, but why are they doing this? I don't know. It's just so much going on. And there's just major tensions escalating all over this world. There's just so much going on. We can't even keep up, I mean, this is just one day's news that I caught up on. So, all right. So yesterday, Taiwan fired flares. Now, a week or so ago, they fired at a drone. It was just one, I believe. But now they fired flares, multiple, at Chinese drones, multiple, that approached the Kinmen Islands, so that the situation has not rested. We were kind of thinking maybe since not a lot had happened, that maybe that situation had rested, but it hadn't. China's still infiltrating and Taiwan's still protecting. So that's still going on. We just aren't hearing as much right at the moment about it. Okay, so on September 10th, a 7.6 earthquake hit in the West Pacific and Papua New Guinea. I'm sorry, some words I can't say because I have no feeling in this whole side of my face, my tongue, the inside of my mouth, everywhere where they took out my mandible. And so sometimes I have a hard time getting words out. So bear with me, please. But it's in New Guinea. This was actually on land. This wasn't in the ocean. This was on land. And it did cause major damage, and it caused catastrophic plate failure, which, plate lines. So when that happens, typically you're going to end up with multiple more earthquakes. And so right after that, there was a 6.5 that struck on that plate boundary in the middle of Sumatra, Indonesia. So what happens is like energy is gonna spread from these areas. And I listened to a guy named Dutch Sense, and he actually pulls it up on the computer and shows you everything. And he's really good at understanding this stuff. So I'm just giving you the tidbits. But DUTCHSINSE is his site on YouTube. He is great. He gets way more in detail. But the way he explained it was energy from these earthquakes is going to spread to Asia, the Mideast, Europe, Japan, Alaska, Central America, and definitely South America. And he's warned to watch for a quake, that an earthquake's going to happen. And so as of today, September 13th, China, Japan, Iran, Chile, and the west coast of the U.S. all have now begun to show movement due to the seismic wave arriving. He's predicting earthquakes very soon in these areas. It's probably in the next couple of days up to a week is about how long it takes from that wave that comes off of an earthquake happening and hitting that fault line. It's going to follow it. Okay, and it takes that long for that fault line to get there. But he says probably in the next few days, no more than a week, and you're going to start seeing earthquakes in those areas. And the last thing I have to tell you is the German chancellor, just a few days ago in a speech stated this coming September 23rd is going to be a day that would be known as one of those days that you will remember where you were and what you were doing. He did not elaborate. He just gave that speech that it was going to be a day, and he was referring to the world would remember and not forget, and that we'll always remember what we were doing when it happened, kind of like 9/11. You know, we all remember what we were doing and whatnot, where we were at when that news came across. And so that's what he's saying. So I don't know what he's talking about. And so I guess we'll find out. So we have a lot. You see what I mean about September? We have a lot going on. I mean, you got that dude in Palestine wanting to attack, threatening the Jews. If you blow the shofar or if you sacrifice an animal at the Temple Mount, we're attacking you. And we know that anytime he calls for this, it happens. All the stuff going on is where you got Armenia and the other country that's attacking it, that's attacking it, and apparently for an invasion, because a lot of times see foot patrol. A lot of times when there's just conflicts, you see air, drones, rockets, things like that. You don't go on foot until typically, I don't think at the last resort. Of course, I'm not a military person, so I don't know, but I wouldn't think you'd go in on foot until last resort, because that's going to most definitely cause casualties. So yeah, you can see we got a lot going on, and I have a feeling I didn't even probably get everything. This took me about 3 hours just to go through and get all this information, because I don't really listen to MSN. I get all my information from reliable sources. Couple of ones live in Israel. Some live in the States, but they're very much involved in the Middle East. I get my information from all of them, and a lot of times I share who I get my information from, like Dutch Sense. So I go in and I listen to their videos and everything, and and look at what they're talking about, and that's where I'm getting my info. But yeah, September's going to be super busy. You got the German chancellor threatening something on September 23rd. You got Israel's holy days coming up, the high holy days coming up from September 26th, and they go through October 10th. So yeah, the Sukkot is on October 10th. Yom Kippur is October 5th, and Rosh Hashanah is September 26th. And so, basically 2 weeks of high holy days going on in Israel. And so we got a lot, guys. And it's interesting. We're focused on everything going on over there. So it makes you kind of concerned what's going to happen over here, because we're so focused on everything that's going on over there. And guys, this is all end time prophecy. It is all end time prophecy. Everything is lining up. And I know in the past we have all heard, oh, Jesus is coming, Jesus is coming. But, when Israel became a nation in 1948, that started the fig tree generation that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24. And we couldn't have had end times if Israel wasn't a nation, because there's just, too many things that Israel's involved with, such as that's where the Antichrist is going to sit on the temple and declare himself God. Couldn't happen if Israel had not become a nation. Jesus instructs the Israelites after the abomination, when Antichrist sits on the throne, declares himself God. He instructs them, run to the wilderness. Don't get anything. Don't stop. Just go, so that they can be protected for 3.5 years in the wilderness. God's going to protect them that last 3.5 years of earth, while we're still on earth and during the tribulation. That couldn't have happened. The Gog-Magog war, that could not have happened. Neither could the Psalm 83 war. And so, even though you've heard in the past, Jesus is coming back, most definitely not before 1948 could it have happened. It couldn't have, because there was no nation to fulfill the prophecies, and now there is. And things had to be put in place. And even though in 1948, they fulfilled that prophecy of becoming a nation, which is now allowing us to fulfill these other prophecies, we still didn't have the electronics and the capabilities that we have today. I mean, like we talked about a few days ago, I could send an email over to Japan and it's there in a couple minutes, a couple seconds, and there's so much that had to happen electronically for us to have, for us to be able to even get to this point. And we are most definitely there, because, the belief is that mark of the beast is going to be some sort of a chip of some sort. We don't know until what happens, but we didn't have those kind of capabilities in the 1950s, 60s, and even 70s. And I mean, 80s is, I guess, when we started getting like mainframe computers, but now we carry our full-blown computers in our back pocket. So anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all tolerating me, and I appreciate y'all listening. And I have a feeling we're going to be getting a lot more videos out. I have doctor's appointments all day tomorrow. I mean, I've got all my oncology appointments tomorrow, just follow-ups, just blood work, junk like that. So I might not be getting on tomorrow, but I'll definitely be uploading our John series on Thursday, and I'll probably be doing another update. Yeah, because I got a feeling this month is between now and the middle of October is going to be super duper busy. All right, guys, keep your faith, keep your eyes on Jesus. Even though we teach about the end times and whatnot in our other videos, our focus is still on Jesus. Okay, our focus is not on the Antichrist or on the end times. Understanding the end times is what we're wanting you to do, but we're wanting you to focus on Jesus. Okay. All right. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for stopping by. Bye-bye.